Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I have an interesting tale to tell, and I think this has a great relevance to fishing in general. Anyway, this morning I got a call from my friend Dave Swanson, who was down on Cayuga Lake, and he told me about something that just happened based on the huge storm that we had, a huge amount of water, and he said the lake came up so many inches, and he said one of the things he noticed, the stream that went through his yard that emptied into the lake just down across the road from him was all high and muddy. And he said he went down there, and lo and behold, he cast out with a worm, thinking that there might be bullhead in there, that they come in there when this happens. And he said it was full of these great big bullheads. And he said, here's what would happen. He'd hook one, and immediately all the other fish in that area would apparently hear it struggling. And he said you could see fish leaving the area in great numbers. You could see the wakes of these fish that were scrambling when they heard this bullhead fighting. And what it did is, he said, it really drove home the thing that they hear things, they smell things and see things like any organism. And the fact that they could hear that, they couldn't see it. They didn't know that there was a bullhead being caught. What they knew is there was a disturbance, and they all started leaving. So that was a big part of his story. But what he said was, after catching so many, and he said they were really big bullhead. One bullhead was longer than the bottom of a 5-gallon pail, which he said was a foot long. So he said, as he noticed a little later when he went back, there were still these fish in there, and he saw this big fish. I don't know how he saw it with the water so muddy. He said he thought it was a carp, and then he saw it again, and he said no, it wasn't a carp. It was, he said, a big catfish that had come in there. So he wanted to try to catch that. So he went and got a carp rod that he had, and he rigged it all up, and he didn't have anything to put on except some old bait that he had for trout. I'm not talking worms now. It was some kind of commercial scented bait that he said he thought was still good, and that the catfish might want to hit this if trout liked it. So he baited up a hook for them. He didn't end up catching them, but he found a place on his yard where he could sit down and cast into a wash of water, muddy water that was emptying into the lake. And he said he fished all afternoon, the bright sun, catching all these bullhead. And so I was waiting for just as you've probably been waiting for the moral of this story, or the end of the tale, and what did it mean? And he said what it really did was, he said it was like going back being a kid. It was so much fun for him to sit there with his rod sitting on a little rod stand. You know, you'd take a piece of wood and stick it in the ground, and where it was thatched, you'd set your rod on it, and that would hold your rod in place so you didn't have to keep holding it. And he said it was like going back to when he was a kid. He said this was such a great experience. And to me, it does represent what fishing is. It's different to everybody. But the role it plays when you're a kid, and it stays with you for life, and how he had such a great time sitting there in his lawn fishing for bullhead just like he was a kid. So I wanted to tell you that story. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.